I don't know how to say this, but we need to break up. Yes, this thing cost me a kidney, and yes, there's a lot more where that came from. Over a year ago, I made this agreement with myself that I would stop listening to music forever. And this was something I was so hesitant about, but over a year later, I'm here to tell you that I never went back. But it was not always like this. And I feel, depending on the audience, you could get this impression from me that I'm someone who is somehow finding, a way to remove anything good in this world. That I'm trying to live like a monk in a way that does not fit current society. And so upon first impression, that can actually trigger a lot of people. And I don't blame you for thinking that way because I would say if I saw myself, I would have said the same thing a year ago or two. Just like many other people, music is something I would listen to while studying, while exercising, while being in my daily bus rides back in school, pretty much any activity or inactivity where I'm not talking to anyone. That's when you'd see me with headphones, earbuds. When I first got into music very heavily, I saw this massive contrast between me and my parents, where for them music is not really a part of their life. And so they can do all of these activities, like working and productive things, without listening to any music, while I could only do those things if I had the music playing. And so I'd ask myself, am I addicted? I noticed everything I do, I just feel inclined to do while listening to music. But then I just told myself, well, the music is there, I have access to it, it's not damaging my health in any way, and it's making me more productive, if anything. So why should I overthink this, kind of take away something from myself which you didn't need to do in the first place? And one day I had a very interesting but also concerning observation about myself. During this time, I would train running 3 times a week. And on all of those runs, I would listen to music. But for some reason, there was this one day where I did not have my earbuds with me and I was running. And that run felt 10 times harder, and I didn't even run as much. It's this idea of your body, your physical body, is capable of so much, but what keeps it behind is the fact that your discipline is not up to level with it. Boredom can overtake you. You can't handle that silence. And so music usually fills that gap, or in a sense, masks this feeling which you have inside. And I started thinking to myself, I really needed music just to function properly. Am I really this dependent on music? And this is kind of the first time I noticed the negative side of it. But that still wasn't enough for me to quit music because I still continued 1 year after that. Now, a statement I used to say in the past, which I completely disagree with now, is that music increases productivity. And I think at first it's very common sense to agree with it, but let me explain. These are two different things. One, you are addicted to music, and now you can't function ideally without it, compared to saying music increases productivity. If you still didn't get it, let me give you an example. Now, it's a very known thing that smoking cannabis, smoking marijuana, smoking tobacco is something which is associated with thinking clearer in the moment. You're able to be more creative and have better cognitive function during that time. And even though I've never smoked in my life, I don't doubt these symptoms. And it's clear to see that there's a strong reason why people go back to it. You have Albert Einstein who smokes while doing his studies. You have so many music artists which are smoking during the music making process. These are things which they need to function ideally cognitively because they were already addicted to it. If you were someone who never smoked in your life, you're not going to go to smoking because, oh, I need something that's going to boost my brain function. Instead, it's something which perhaps you were peer pressured into as a kid, and eventually it became a part of your life. So now, when you want to think properly, you're going to need a cigarette. You're going to need a vape. The way I think of this is when I'm hungry and I have a very strong craving for something, I can't think about the task I have at hand properly. But the difference here is that one is a hunger for something I need to survive, while the other is for something which I don't need to survive in any way, shape, or form. So now, hoping that you understood that better, let me rephrase it in the context of music again. You are someone who maybe has been listening to music all your life since you were a child. And because it's a crucial part of your life, now when you are studying or when you are exercising, you need the music because you've already been exposed to it all your life to make you be more productive. So you phrase it as music makes me more productive, when it's actually I made myself dependent on music. I need it to function at my best. Now, listening to music is something which is so important to many people when it comes to studying. And this is for a very simple reason. The studying can get so boring sometimes, so dry, that to drag yourself through that studying session, you need a song, you need a few songs, you need a playlist. And I understand. It's something which honestly to this day I crave in so many of my studying sessions when things, get so long and boring, as I said. But I have to be honest with myself, I have to be unbiased. Music doesn't allow you to think deeply in the material which you're studying. Think about yourself doing this exam, this very high stakes exam. And depending on your result in this exam, it's going to change the direction of your life. Okay, it's that important. And then, as you're doing this exam, someone put headphones on your head and starts to play music. You are going to instantly take those headphones off. I don't care who you are. Because you want to focus, right? You want that space in your brain to be occupied by thinking about the material in front of you, not occupied by the music on those headphones. Now, one of the hardest things about school, university, and definitely working in the future is going to be having to apply your knowledge to open-ended scenarios where there's no black and white answer, but you really have to think outside of the box. And it's also these kind of questions in the exams which frustrate students the most, where memorizing is not going to help you, as I mentioned. You need to have this depth of knowledge and understanding concepts and connect points and apply them. And so I want you to imagine that when you're studying, and you don't just want to memorize, you really want to understand. Okay? You want to understand to the point where you can explain it to someone and apply it to real life. You need to be able to bear with your silence in your head as you're reading. You need to hear your own voice. And I really do believe that when you're listening to music and it occupies that silence in your head, it stops you from achieving that depth of knowledge which you want. You are doing this trade-off where you are enjoying the studying more, okay? It's more rewarding, there's more hormones being released in your head, but that's at the cost of the depth of knowledge you've come out with. And I really don't think I need to give you some science report, some study to show you this. Like, I just want you to picture that all of these inventions made throughout history were made by someone who was listening to a song going like this as he's writing, or going like this as he's looking at the sky. Like, that's so hard to imagine. And you might argue, yeah, they didn't have like Spotify and earbuds back then, but do you really believe that all of this time where they sat alone in rooms and were thinking about things deeply and sweating and blood and tears and all of that, and they could have had that same result by listening to music? If there are new viewers in this channel, then I do want to repeat something I mentioned in a previous video, and I'm gonna end the segment with this. When you listen to music excessively, your default state becomes that music. So when you don't have that music anymore, you feel that life is boring. You feel that you can't appreciate the little things in life. You can't bear the silence. And I feel, or I know, that we as humans were not created to be that way. And so this part of the video is for both Muslims and non-Muslims. It's really for everyone. And I feel with this knowledge, if you are non-Muslim, I would moderate how much I listen to music. I don't think it's enough reason to completely quit music, but I would definitely moderate it and really reflect on myself and see how much it's affecting me. But the things in the end which made me completely quit music are all religious based, and they are all from Islam. And that is the second segment of this video, so let's begin that inshallah. And if there are any non-Muslims, I appreciate all of you for watching and I respect all of you so much. But these are going to be the Islamic and religious reasons for why I quit music, which is really the more important side. But I also believe that the first segment of the video is going to have a lot of benefit even towards Muslims themselves, because it kind of shares with you the wisdoms behind leaving off music rather than just saying music is bad and you should stop listening to it. I want to give a quick shout out to the man who truly deserves the label of being called my best friend. He has his own channel, please check it out. And he did upload his own journey and lessons from quitting music for over 2 years. MashaAllah. Everyone say Allahumma barik. This man is the reason who actually got me into thinking about quitting music, and he was constantly telling me to try to quit for like Ramadan and see how you feel. And so I definitely would not have done it without him. Clearly Allah has used him for a lot of good in my life. And yeah, please check out his channel, and I think that will motivate him to do a lot more videos. And so over a year ago, on October, I'm thinking to myself, okay, let me stop thinking about all of these secondary reasons for why I should quit music. What is the Quran? The Quran is the verbatim spoken words of Allah. And it was revealed through Jibreel alayhi salam to the Prophet, and now I still have it with me to this day, preserved in this book. And this book is pretty much everything which matters in this world. Every solution to the main problems in life. And I have access to it for free, reading it whenever I want. And I can also listen to it whenever I want. And instead, I choose to find my comfort in music. When I'm sad, I listen to music. When I'm happy, I listen to music. When I'm lost in life, I go on YouTube and search about people's philosophies rather than just going to the Quran and finding my problem and solution there. And obviously, because Muslims are going to eventually interact with the Quran in some way, they're going to interact with it and realize that it's so dull, and it's so boring. They don't want to say it. Astaghfirullah, they don't want to say it, but it just is so boring. And that's just because of how they've wired their brain into needing this constant stimulus of reels, of listening to music, of this constant release of dopamine. And the Quran is just not satisfying that area of your brain. But you know what's so beautiful about that is that the Quran is made in a way where it's not this excessive stimulus. It's something which you can listen to for as much as you want, whenever you want, wherever you want. And it would not be considered a bad thing. I would not say this is an addiction. And of course it's going to release dopamine, it's going to release hormones. Dopamine is not a bad thing, but it's not excessive where it's a problem you need to regulate. It's not going to damage your attention span anyway, because the Quran is something we are told to listen to obviously relax from, but also ponder upon their meanings and really understand them and apply them. And so the Quran is really improving so many of these skills of being able to listen and being able to read, and also being able to apply what you read and being able to ponder while simultaneously enjoying this beautiful way it's structured and the melody. It just, subhanallah, you can't go wrong with the Quran. And so considering all of this and the amount of reward which you get from it, which I haven't even talked about, and then you somehow still go to music. And I get it, Because music is so powerful. Like some people sometimes will say, just tell yourself that music is just sounds. And yeah, it is just sounds. But it's also very powerful sounds. Because sometimes it feels like I could train myself to like the Quran for a month, and all it will take is just one song to crash that whole building down. When you think about stuff this way, it starts to not just become I removed something from my life, but it also becomes I substituted it with something that's so much better for me. And I think that's a beautiful way to think about Islam in general, as something that is coming to provide you with better alternatives and to correct the things which you deviated away from. So that's not actually how it's supposed to be. Let me bring you back to the right path. But I do want to be realistic in this video. From that moment when I quit music, obviously you have this surge of iman at the start and like this massive motivation and happiness that you're doing the right thing. And it's still definitely there until now. But obviously as time passes, you're going to be tested in some ways, right? Like to really make sure that you have left music. And really, there's a lot of these nostalgic moments where if you're using YouTube or you're outside and you hear this song that plays and you're like, man, that just sounds so good. Like you're not showing that you're vibing to it, but you love the song and it's giving you these flashbacks of, the good old days. Or that, for instance, this artist which you've been listening to for your whole life just dropped a new album, but now that you quit music, you can't listen to that album. And it's just like so many of these things that are teasing you. And honestly, I would say this has been the biggest struggle so far. I think it's very easy to quote unquote quit an addiction if you have, in a sense, cut off all your connection to it. But because I live in this generation, in this time, I'm going to hear it in the background of videos. I'm going to hear it in the background of malls. And so it's this like middle ground of I know it's haram and I don't listen to it, but you have this nostalgic feeling towards it. And so that's something which you're going to have to fight. And also constantly remind yourself that don't just resist the music, but also aim to love the Quran more. And when you do that, it becomes so much easier. Like you don't even think about going back, even if you have some nostalgic feelings towards music. And this is one of those things which in this channel has been probably the most uncomfortable from all the uncomfortable truths for me personally, because this is one of those things where at first impression, you don't see it as a bad thing. Like smoking damages your health. Lustful acts are seen as disgusting and very shameful. But with music, it's like, it's a bit tougher for me personally because it's not something which is shameful at first impression. But then when you start to go through this whole thought process I had, you're like, yeah, okay. Like now I'm in this middle ground. And it's kind of hard to get out of that middle ground. And for me, that middle ground was actually 2 years of me thinking, should I quit music or should I not quit music? The reason I'm just telling you this is to show you that these are thoughts we all have in our head. And even though I've made an entire video telling you that I'm quitting music, there is another side of me inside which I'm resisting. And I want to show you that's normal. This is just a part of your nafs. Your nafs is going to want so many things in life which are wrong. Your nafs is like a child which you have to tame. Like, if I was 100% convinced that music was halal, believe me, I would be the first person on the planet to learn the piano. Okay? But at this point, I just tell myself, the Jannah is way more valuable. And when I go there, Allah is going to create for me the best album of all time. Okay? A custom album from Allah. A custom album from the angels. I'm gonna have my own band and everything. And although it sounds like I'm joking, that is something I always think about. So, I think I'll end the video there. Hope you guys enjoyed, or maybe felt a bit uncomfortable, to the point where it can push you in a good direction. And I'll see you in the next video inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.